It's just after 2 a.m., and David Spezzo is suddenly wide awake. He knows it's 2 a.m. because he can see the clock on his nightstand out of the corner of his left eye. But to his alarm, he can't physically turn his head to look. In fact, he realizes that he can't move at all. And out of the corner of his other eye, he sees that he isn't alone. The figure is there, standing just outside his bedroom door. David always sleeps with his bedroom door closed in order to keep his roommate's cat out at night. But now the door is wide open and someone is standing right outside it. David strains as hard as he can to crane his neck, to move his legs, and to get out of bed, to scream for help, but he's completely paralyzed. The best he can manage is a hoarse whimper. The figure suddenly disappears and reappears, and now it's inside his room. It's in the closest corner to the open door, and as the figure seems to lift his head up to look at him, David can see more details. It seems to be a man standing just over 6 feet tall, dressed head to toe in black, though it's hard to tell if he's actually wearing any clothing at all, as the shadows in the room almost seem to be attracted to him, wrapping around him. What he can tell for sure is the figure is wearing a hat, something from a few decades ago with a wide brim. Then the figure seems to open its eyes, blazing red coals in its pitch-black face. David can't breathe. Horrible pressure weighs down on him. He gasps for air, trying to scream once more. Suddenly, the spell is broken and David has full control of his body. He throws himself off the bed the opposite side of the Hat Man, scrambling to get away, but as he picks himself up off the floor, the Hat Man is gone. The only evidence anyone was ever there is the still opened bedroom door. Someone will go on to tell him he simply suffered a bout of sleep paralysis, an unsettling phenomenon that can lead to the exact same paralysis and vivid hallucinations David experienced. But David knows that the Hat Man was still there when the paralysis faded, and he knows that he always sleeps with the door closed. David's photo is unsettling, but it's hardly unique. Shadow people have long been reported throughout human history, and with proliferation of video cameras and recording devices throughout our modern world, photos and images of shadow people have popped up with increasing regularity. What's new in the shadow people phenomenon might be its most disturbing evolution, however, or possibly a hint that shadow people are more than ghosts or figments of people's imagination. China, Mexico, the United States, Europe. The places are different, but the descriptions are always the same. A tall man dressed all in black, and always wearing a hat of some kind. Sometimes he appears alone, other times he appears with other shadow person cohorts. When he appears in a group, it's clear he's in charge. The encounters vary. Sometimes the victim will wake up and realize the Hat Man is standing there watching over them. He's described as featureless, though at times he's been reported to have blazing red eyes. Other times, the Hat Man is accompanied by a group of shadow people whom he almost seems to let loose on the victim. Sufferers have reported having to fight off these wispy, wraith-like beings before finally disappearing, but real scratches and bruises are left behind. Victims typically remain paralyzed for the entire encounter though, and these physical altercations appear to be the extreme minority. Some sufferers have described feelings as if the Hat Man was draining them of their vitality, feeding off their life force like some kind of ghostly vampire. Others were sure that the Hat Man was after their very soul. One victim described waking up to find the Hat Man standing at the foot of her bed, looking down upon her with his featureless black face. She could feel pure evil emanating from the creature, washing over her and almost suffocating her. Try as she might, she couldn't move her body or scream for help though. Then she started praying to God and asking for protection when suddenly the Hat Man disappeared, vanishing into thin air. Instantly, she was freed from his paralytic grasp. Other victims, however, have described more physical encounters, with them waking up to discover the Hat Man physically standing over them, his feet on their chest. Other times, he'll be straddling their chest, pushing down on them and making it difficult to breathe. Still others have seen him simply hovering over them, some sort of force being projected down onto them to keep them in place. One woman from East Asia was sure the Hat Man was after her very soul. Medical doctors will point to sleep paralysis as an explanation for Hat Man apparitions. While sleep paralysis does go a long way toward explaining the Hat Man phenomenon, it doesn't quite fill in all the details. It's estimated that something like 40% of all people will experience sleep paralysis at least once in their lives. So if you haven't experienced it yet, get ready because odds are good that it's coming. An estimated 8% of people experience the phenomenon repeatedly. Caused by the brain being caught between a dreaming state and wakefulness, sleep paralysis happens when your brain has paralyzed your muscles to keep you from hurting yourself during your dreams, and believing it's still in a dream state hasn't quite released the body for duty. The close proximity to this dream state can explain the powerful hallucinations experienced by sufferers, with the most common described as being humanoid figures and insects crawling on walls or objects around the person. Typically lasting only a few seconds, the brain eventually realizes it's actually awake and releases your muscles from their dreamtime paralysis. It's a good explanation, but it's missing two key points in the attempt to explain the Hat Man phenomenon. First, sleep paralysis doesn't explain the fact that sufferers all over the world are reporting a nearly identical figure during their episodes. How could individuals from vastly different cultures and with no direct link to each other all be describing the same individual? Always around 6 feet tall, cloaked in black, no visible features, and always a hat of some kind. If the phenomenon were simply the cause of sleep paralysis, then surely Hat Man would take on forms more appropriate for each individual culture. Yet this isn't the case, and sleep paralysis doesn't account for the physical evidence. A minority of sufferers experience very physical encounters with the Hat Man, although interestingly, it seems that it's never him who's the attacker, but rather other shadow people that accompany him. These individuals report that they're attacked and forced to fend off one or more shadow people while the Hat Man watches, and this happens long after the sleep paralysis is worn off. After every encounter, a victim might find scratches or bruises on their body. But this isn't the only physical evidence of the Hat Man phenomenon. Often a Hat Man will be described as manipulating objects in the environment around him. He's been known to open doors in closets, sometimes even push aside objects on a nightstand. Like in our opening account, the Hat Man will sometimes open a sleeper's door when they've had a lifelong habit of sleeping with their door closed. Sleep paralysis clearly does not explain these physical events. So what does the Hat Man want? Opinions are divided on the identity of the Hat Man. Some believe he's an alien observer, an otherworldly visitor using advanced technology to cloak himself and manipulate his victims. Most, however, are convinced the Hat Man is purely paranormal, an evil entity that's not of this or any other world. Perhaps he's feeding on his victims' fears, as clearly if he wished to physically hurt or kill his paralyzed victims, he'd be able to freely do so while they were paralyzed. This would put the Hat Man more in line with demonic entities, which are well known to cultivate and feed on fear, becoming more powerful the more their victim is afraid of them. Whatever a Hat Man's interactions are, one thing's for sure, he isn't done, as he continues to be reported around the world. The next Hat Man visit might just be in your bedroom tonight. Now go watch Shadow People: The Terrifying Mystery Explained, or click this other video instead.